Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and welcome once again. We broadcast every Monday on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, on the YouTube channel that I happen to have, as well as theatercriticism.com's Facebook page. And for those of you out there about to check out the show, we remind you that you should go to https://facebook.com/StreamYard, which will allow your name to appear in the comments so that we put the names up. Now, we're going to get started. And without any further ado, we're going to bring in our guest for tonight. That is going to be Jessica Sherr. We want to make sure that Jessica's here and that she knows that she is on. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit about what you're doing, and we're going to actually be broadcasting, as I understand it, Jessica, we're going to be doing a simulcast to your website as well. So we're not only broadcasting to our regular NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group and our music lovers YouTube channel that I have, as well as the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, but also to your own, which is what is it jessicasherr.com or?
Well, no, it's actually in a moment. It's going to be on my Facebook. I just got to connect it. So I'm just signing into my Facebook. But of course, give me a two-factor login because things are so.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
Exciting these days. So I'm just going to log in and then we can get started. But
okay. Yeah. Well, just take your time. I'm pouring my drink for tonight. Normally I don't usually drink a lot of wine on the show, but you know what? I thought tonight was appropriate. This is Baron Herzog. It is a kosher wine. And I needed to get rid of it in a sense because of the fact that it's been hanging around a little bit too long in my house. And I have these lovely vacuum van, the seals that will allow you to drink a wine a little bit beyond its age. You know, that used to be the adage that no wine before it's time. In my house, it's always time for wine. So, So I should tell everybody that is on the line tonight and maybe watching on your Facebook page as well, that you are going to be performing here in New Orleans this weekend on both Friday and Sunday. And again, Friday at 7 o'clock and on Sunday at 2 o'clock at the National World War II Museum's BB Stage Door Canteen. And you can see the BB Stage Door Canteen is prominently displayed on our site tonight as we broadcast. And let me know when you are set. Are you still doing the two-fact?
I want to just go run over to my Facebook page and make sure I've done this correctly.
Okay.
Because you know what? It's technology. Yep. Okay.
All right.
See us live now. So let's just get that. That's happening. 1 second. Send. Oh, technology. This is why people have assistants, I believe. Yes. Okay. All right.
So I'm just checking things out right now. My family was very familiar with Bette Midler. And of course,
Bette Davis.
They spelled it the same way, but they pronounced it differently. So I'm trying to understand why, but it's not Bette Davis, it's Bette Davis.
That's right.
Larger than life. And
you know why?
And why is it that way? Do you know? I'm sure you do. You did the research.
I do.
So
I'm just playing live now, Theater Folk. And save. Okay, so the reason it is what it is because her name is really Ruth Elizabeth Davis. And Betty became a nickname, so it was Betty. But, you know, because she's a snarky person she is, she decided to make it Betty with an E, and her father was not very happy. So she kept it.
Well, you know, a lot of us children sometimes displease our parents, but we do what we have to do. Again, Jessica, I want to thank you for coming tonight. We are going to be talking about your show. And again, I'm going to get a little closer there in case we need to really check you out. I have a little clip that you provided me with, and we also have several pictures. But for those of you who are, I guess, living under a rock, who don't know who we're talking about, Bette Davis, very famous film star. And I guess I'll move back a little bit and see if we can get some nice shots of some of the people. There's Betty. Now, I would think she's probably in her early 20s there, maybe.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Probably
So
just early 20s. Yeah.
and then that may be a little bit more mature, maybe early 30s or late 20s. I'm not quite sure.
Oh
And
my,
then
look at that hair. I
this
love
is
it.
one I really love. It reminds me of one of the shots in your show,
Yeah.
and again, very regal, very much the movie star of yesteryear. And I did manage to go out and get a nice picture of Paul Henreid and her in Now Voyager, where he lights up the
Oh,
two
nice.
cigarettes. How you like that? Is that pretty
Oh,
cool?
fantastic. So good.
Now I understand that was actually I think maybe from your show, but that was what he had done. He had actually done that with his own wife, and apparently, as we'll learn, I guess in the show, that it was something that he improvised, and it wasn't in the script. And you always would think those sorts of things are in the script ahead of time, and the director told him to do it, but he probably, said, I got an idea, and the director said, yeah, go with it. So
Yeah.
some of that.
What happened was that he thought it'd be kind of cute because he and his wife, they would go for a drive and then he would put a cigarette in his mouth and he put her cigarette in his mouth. He just light them both and he'd offer her one while they were driving. So that's essentially what ended up happening in the film. He just did it as a bit. And funny enough, the actual director couldn't stand it. He thought it was trite. It wasn't very good. And she knew it was something really special. And so she called the producer down to the soundstage and said, you know what, go ahead and take a look at this. And he was like, oh, that's actually really good. So she was, standing her ground of who she was always, of like fighting for what she believed in.
So what did you bring in the room tonight besides my wine? Oh, more wine.
French wine. I know. I love wine. I'm such a fan. Oh, here we go. Look at that great glass you have. Oh, fantastic.
Well, actually, this is one of our fantastic Mardi Gras crews that I worked with as the narrator and the manuscript writer for many years. Iris, the crew of Iris, and they are now, believe it or not, the largest crew in all of Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
No way.
The women's crew. It used to be a men's crew, and they had in 1941 or 42, the crew of Venus came out, first parading women's crew. The other crews that they had that were women were only balls. They did not parade. So Venus actually set the way for women, and the lady who founded the crew of Venus also founded the crew of Iris. So Iris was here first as the first ladies' crew, and then Venus became the first lady, and the same lady founded both. And then she turned the reins over sometime in the early 50s or mid 50s to the lady who would actually take over as the captain, the first parading captain, and she made sort of an admonition to the new captain that she could have the parade, rather could have the crew, but they couldn't parade. But within a few years, it became evident that if they didn't parade, they were going to die. So they ended up parading, and they became the second parading crew for women. So there you go. But yeah, Iris, and they got a beautiful Iris logo there, as it were, and of course their logo also is the iris, the flower, so the goddess of the rainbow and the messenger of the gods. So there you go. So speaking of movie gods, this is something that I know you as an actor did a lot of research. Let's go back in time a little bit before we get into Bette Davis and find a little bit more about Jessica. You grew up where? In California?
I did. I grew up in Southern California, in San Diego County, in a town called El Cajon, which means the box.
Okay.
And but I fell in love at the age of 3 with tap dancing, and my mother had me tap dancing as a little snowman. And I thought, this is the best. I was a really good Frosty the Snowman. I got hooked, and I started out as a little dancer doing tap, jazz, and ballet from age 3 to 18. And I loved to perform, and it's always been in my life.
Now, did you say at one point you were actually a young actor, that you were actually doing SAG stuff? You were doing like films and TV stuff and whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I started in theater, and then my first film credit, I was on an airplane and I met a director who was about to start producing in Los Angeles, and I was flying to Texas. And they said, you know what, if you come back to Los Angeles, I'll actually put you in my film. So I got to play a secretary in this film called Steppin' Out, and it was fun. I mean, it was my first time being on a film set, and I think I was probably about 21, maybe. But it was the beginning of
And that was
something
just 2 years ago. Let's face it, right?
yeah, I mean, just recent. But my actual now that I think about it, my first real TV appearance. Now that I go back in third grade, I won a mental health contest. I had to make a poster about mental health, and the winner got to go on this TV show called the Berman and Berman Show in San Diego. And I drew a picture of me dancing as a little ballerina, and I can't draw, but somehow I won. And it was so exciting to go onto this, TV show, how it really works, and having the lighting, and having a moment to kind of talk about the poster. And that, now I think about it, was third grade, was my first like official appearance.
So was San Diego nearby where you were?
I mean, San Diego County is Southern California, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like encompassing of a bunch of little towns. And the little town I grew up in, El Cajon, was very eastern San Diego.
Yeah.
But the good news about San Diego is a lot of theater and opportunity for kids. So I feel like I got kind of like into it young. And I started in a magnet school in third grade. My mom knew I was such a good little dancer. She's like, let's put you into school. We can learn about, other things, theater and singing and calligraphy. I mean, they did everything at the school. It was called Fame. And that was my entry to being a creative person around other creative kids. And I thought that was really neat because I realized that creative kids are different. And we all have we need an outlet. So that was cool. And then, yeah, I got into like the actual, film and TV later on. I
Okay.
started into
Well,
that.
I wondered because San Diego is not too far away from where they filmed Some Like It Hot. They had
Yeah.
the hotel that was there. Is it? I'm trying to remember the name of the island.
Yeah, Hotel Del Coronado.
Coronado Island. That's yeah.
Absolutely.
And so if you're not watching for the Navy SEALs that are out there doing their maneuvers, you can go to the Coronado Hotel, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's fantastic.
Oh,
yeah. So and again, I don't know anybody had a chance to do that. Of course, nowadays they also have the Midway, the big battleship that they had out there as well. I guess it's an aircraft carrier. Come to think of it, not a battleship, but anyway. So you grew up in California, and I know you had mentioned that you got into acting. Where did you attend college? Was it in New York?
Yeah, no, I wanted to go to New York, but my parents really didn't have the funds to send me out of state. So I actually went to UC Santa Barbara, and I'm
Okay.
really excited to get into a UC school because there was a lot of opportunities. And I auditioned for the BFA, the Bachelor of Fine Arts, and I was a shoo-in, and then I did not get in. So I spent my first 2 years not doing what I loved.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, by my third year, I'll just audition again. I'll be prepared this time. And I didn't get in again. So I went through my 4 years of college not doing something I really loved. I did find that I could go out of town. And so being scrappy me, every summer I would actually drive out to a theater. So either it was San Diego, because they had an amazing outdoor theater called Starlight, and I do, summer theater. Or I found this other wonderful company called PCPA, and they were like an amazing professional company. And I got to do my first year as an understudy, and that was really interesting, learning how to learn everyone's track. And then the next year I was like a character, and that was fun because I got to drive out away from college, do what I loved. Ultimately, to after 4 years of college, of a degree in English and theater, dramatic arts. Actually, I didn't get theater. I went to New York, and that was the beginning of my
So
epic.
somewhere around your 24th year, approximately, you went to New York.
I was 22. Yeah.
Okay,
20.
so you were really an early starter there. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. So
Yeah.
22, and now you're in New York. Now I know you had mentioned because we've talked earlier that you really got into method acting, into some of the work there. How did you get into that, and how did you get accepted to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just like anyone else, you've kind of, when you're in New York, you find all these different acting techniques, and I was pretty sure that I wanted to learn a little bit of all of them. So I started with method, and that really I realized I had a very open instrument, and a good way I could really access my emotions. And then I realized after 5 years of doing that, I wanted wanted to explore other techniques. So I was studying with an amazing theater studio called the Wynn Handman Studio, and he was kind of a mixture of Meisner and his own technique. And for me, he was the first person who really taught me how to be grounded in my acting. And that I had to audition for. He did not take everybody. I remember sitting in the hallway near Carnegie, like near the Carnegie Hall area, and waiting to audition and being very nervous, and walking in, doing the work, and then him saying, you're directable, and that was something he was looking for. So
That's nice. It's you know what? Obviously, you had something that he liked. And how long did you work with him? Was it longer
yeah,
than a year, or was it?
yeah, I was there for 5 years to
Wow.
start. And yeah, I loved it. And it was twice a week, 4 hours of class. It was really like a lot of your life. It was, and then you would find your partner and you would rehearse during the week. So it felt so good to be in process. And then I left for a little bit because I wanted to focus on comedy. And so I did some improv at UCB and the Magnet and all those, the Pit in New York. And then I ended up going back years later, about 5 years later, just for a year, to get back into that mindset. And I would have stayed if it wasn't for COVID. I would have stayed.
So, when did you actually start to develop your work with Bette Davis? When was that you developed? Was that did that grow out of your work with
It's
Method?
kind of, yes. So originally I was at a studio that encouraged solo shows, even though we didn't know they were gonna be solo shows. It was a class where you had to create a character. And so I, decided to create a character in a class, and it was gonna just be like me as Lucille Ball, because I was a funny redhead. And then that same year in 2008, I think it was, I was walking around New York and people would stop me and they'd be like, "You look like a young Bette Davis." I'm like, what? Okay. And so I Googled her, and sure enough, I kind of looked like a young Bette Davis. And so I decided in this class just to do, a snippet of a Bette Davis scene. I did not know it was going to turn into a solo show at all. And it did. It ended up in that class, developing this character, doing it in a performance. And we did 13 Saturdays. And I thought, I'm done. I did this little 28-minute show. And then it just stuck with me. I was stuck with this bursting idea that I had something, and that was 2010. I'm still doing it. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, the journey is pretty incredible.
I remember taking a playwriting course with Jim Fitzmaurice, who was a very well liked playwright before he stopped writing. And he actually taught a course, and we'd start out with like a 10 or 15-minute segment that we would do, and then we would increase it. We would add things to it, et cetera. So you ended up with a fully fleshed out work, probably a one act, what you consider a full one act, as opposed to a very, very short skit almost. And so I know the kind of process that you went through, and all of a sudden it went from 10 minutes or 15 minutes to 30 minutes to 40 minutes, and I know that you've had the same experience in terms of your adding layers to your character. What was it that you found in your research that was the most interesting aspect about Bette Davis that you don't think a lot of people know about? In terms, was it her willing to buck the system, or was there something else about her that you found really compelling?
I mean, I found the most compelling part, and the part that I really didn't know, was that how her mom was a single mother, and Ruthie Davis just saw something in Betty that only a mother could see, and just stuck by her side. And Ruthie Davis used to pack her and Betty's sister in the car, and she'd drive them to different towns, and she would find ways for the girls to study dance or singing or acting. And there's a great story where they went to, I think it was Peterborough, New Hampshire, and Ruthie was a photographer. So she had set up a little photography shop so she could pay for the girls to have somewhere to live. And then she would trade. She'd barter like her services so that Betty could take acting classes while her sister Bobby could play piano. So she was really interesting for me, was the relationship of Bette Davis's mother. And I felt that was really strong in my writing, to realize that this was someone who really cared for Betty, whereas her father left when they were 10, and Betty had barely any kind of relationship with him. And she kind of, I think, fought most of her life to have this relationship with her father, who's kind of this absent figure. So I thought that was really interesting in my research to see the backbone of who Betty is. And of course, she becomes a strong woman in Hollywood who's ahead of her time. And I think it does stem from having a mother who was just, such a strong woman herself, who really took care of these two little girls by herself in 1920.
There were a lot of, I hate to call them stage mothers, but a lot of, let's call them film mothers, who actually advanced the careers of their daughters. You mentioned Bette Davis, and people may remember Jean Harlow's mother was very, very powerful, and even Marilyn Monroe, her mother pushed her when she was starting out her career. So again, I think that as they got bigger, just like in Gypsy, if you remember, when Gypsy Rose Lee becomes Gypsy Rose Lee, she doesn't need her mother Rose anymore, and they kind of feel a little bit discarded. But if it weren't for those very strong-minded and strong-willed women as mothers, these successful actresses may not have been as successful as they ended up becoming.
Right.
So again, for those of you who are just joining us, we invite you, if you want to make a comment, we would love to hear from you. The shows that we were talking about at the World War II Museum at BB Stage Door Canteen is going to be Bette Davis, Larger Than Life. It's going to be 7 o'clock on this Friday, which is the 21st, and also on Sunday at 2 p.m. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, tickets are still available. You can go online to the national, I think it's national ww2museum.org, and just click at the very top where it says BB Stage Door Canteen, and then it'll take you to the page and you can buy tickets there. And I don't know, was there something going on, any kind of deal where they got like a discount going on right now? I thought there was like a 10% discount that I saw somewhere. But
I think you're right. I feel like NOLA people might know that better than me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and check, but I'm gonna look in my emails. But I think that I saw that they had sent out a missive of some sort of note saying that they were offering tickets now, and they were giving you use this code and you get 10% off. So again, they're not offering meals. In the past, BB's has had like a brunch or some kind of a lunch or whatever that would be coupled with it, but they're not doing that on Sunday or on Friday night. So you need to have eaten your meals or plan to eat your meals after the show's over. The show runs how long? About what, hour and 10 or something like that?
Yeah, it's an hour and 10, I'd say, 75 minutes.
Yeah. So and no intermission. No intermission. It starts and it goes all the way through. And afterwards, I assume, I don't know whether or not COVID will be a consideration, but if people want to sit and maybe say hello and congratulate you on your appearance, etc. Again, those of you who are concerned about going down because of the Crew of Boo parade on Saturday night, the show that originally had been scheduled for that night is not going to go because we know that it's almost impossible to get down to that area of the downtown development district near where what used to be Lee Circle and where the complex is for the the museum is, and it would be really difficult to get people even if they were dedicated and trying to make it down there. So especially now that they just announced that Dickie Brennan is going to be the king of the Crew of Boo, there'll be all of his fans out there, all of the people who have eaten his food at his steakhouse or at the Tableau or Palace Cafe and can't wait to say hi and wave at him. So again, we're talking about Bette Davis, Larger Than Life, and I'm going to play a little clip in just a second or two, but I wanted to see what comments we've got. I see that there you go. That's the way to get I guess more information. And again, Facebook user, if you will go out to the site where it says https://facebook.com/StreamYard, you will actually be seen. Your real name will appear in those comments, and we can see who you are. I have a feeling it might be somebody associated with the museum, but and if it's Erica, God bless her. And we're going to try to get the BB Stage Door Canteen, I think, has a page of some sort. And I want to make sure that they become members of NOLA Theater Folk, because that way they can use these kind of shows and stream them on their own site or or share them out much more easily and more readily. So we want people to do that. I started this particular group up right when the pandemic started, April 1st. It was the terrible April Fool's joke. And we started with just about 10 or 12 people. And it's now well over 600 people that we've got as members. And all of them have a connection to New Orleans theater that we've maintained through the couple of 2.5 years or so that we've been doing this. And again, we've had a lot of success promoting theater. Also, we had this as a platform for people to actually do some of their own plays, and we would actually premiere some world premieres on our platform. So we were very fortunate to be able to do this, and the people that we work with on StreamYard have been very helpful. They actually allowed me to access a higher level of the platform that I wasn't paying for, because they felt strongly enough that we needed to get that out during the time we were doing John Bigonet's 3 plays. So it was very, very helpful. Again, we do want everybody to know that the plays are going to run on Friday night and Sunday afternoon, 7 p.m. and 2 p.m. respectively. And Jessica, I want everybody to get an idea, a little bit of flavor of what we're doing here. So first off, before I play the clip, I wanted to get everybody a little flavor of some of the kind of scenes that you're going to have. Now, this is a beautiful shot, and yes, you do have a very striking resemblance to the Bette Davis of yore, and we'll see you in action in the clip with that mink. There you are again on the phone, and I believe the phone has quite a I might say presence in your show, doesn't it?
It does. It does. That phone is the link to the outside world, to what Betty's trying to do is kind of like not listen to Hollywood. And she comes home from the Oscars, and why stay if I know I'm not going to win? And I leave the Oscars early.
Yes.
And trying to have some time away from it. And the phone keeps ringing to reminding her of what's out there. So it's a good way in a solo show to, utilize that there are other characters, even though you don't see them, you think you do.
Right. This is one, and we may want to move sort of. I'll move this away, and you move that away. Watch. There we go. You're going the wrong way. No. Stay where you were. Oh my goodness. There you go. You've disappeared completely. But no, there you go. Now, she does smoke her cigarettes, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. The whole play is not about that, but it does. She does smoke her cigarettes.
And back then, cigarettes were considered part of the experience of living every day, and the cigarette industry, was not taking a back seat or perhaps diversifying as they have nowadays.
No.
Now, this is a wonderful scene that you've got there, and I'm not going to give away what's going on there, but you actually have a real life magazine. I'm sure that through the years you've had to kind of patch it up from time to time, because it looks like it gets a little bit of wear and tear, but there she is right on the cover. And again, Bette Davis, larger than life. We want everybody to know that this is one of the one-woman shows. I know that they did a show not that long ago that we had your friend Heather Massey was involved with, and she did the Hedy Lamarr show, and I know that you two know each other, which is fantastic. That I guess birds of a feather flock together in a sense. That you look for each other's back in a sense, and when they're good experiences, etc. And again, Bette Davis being portrayed by you here with her 2 Oscars, as you can see. Now, she won 1 Oscar for was it Jezebel was one?
Yep, for Jezebel, and the other one for Dangerous.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
A lot of people might think that maybe one of the later ones, that she was so much more like Now Voyager or one of those, but or even maybe All About Eve, that maybe she might have won that, but no. I think that was Ann Sheridan, wasn't it? Or
well, Ann Baxter had
Baxter,
lobbied
Ann Baxter,
Best Actress.
Ann Baxter,
and
yes.
that movie is clearly supporting. So Betty lost for her. The world thought she was going to get her 3rd Oscar for Margot Channing and All About Eve, but because there was so many votes split between the 2 of them, They both lost, and
Yeah.
Judy Holliday won for Born Yesterday, which was a good performance, but it
Let me
wasn't
tell
all
you.
about Eve.
Judy Holliday, you know what? Judy Holliday was an actor that really
Leader.
defied the odds. A lot of people, thought that she was just a dumb blonde, but she was wonderful. And of course, people forget Born Yesterday came after All the King's Men, right? Didn't she perform in that one as well? And I think that was based here in New Orleans and Louisiana. We know that was kind of loosely based on Huey Long and the whole story that Robert Penn Warren did of All the King's Men. So hopefully people get that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to right now play the clip. And again, we want everybody who is out there watching Jessica tonight to consider going to these shows, because there's only 2 of them. And to give you a little bit of flavor as to what the shows are all about, we're going to go ahead and play this short clip. And this will give you a little taste of Bette Davis, Larger Than Life. And I will tell you that the show normally is titled something differently. So if you see a different title, it's just that's the working title. But this show will be titled Bette Davis, Larger Than Life.
Did anyone read the newspaper? The LA Times leaked all the winners. How thoughtful of them!
Oh, well, my name is Jessica Sherr. I'm the actress and the playwright of the acclaimed solo show Bette Davis Ain't for Sissies. It's about young Bette Davis in the 1930s and her fight in Hollywood, all the way through the later years of her life, and seeing this person who's this tenacious star fighting her way through the studio system.
Once you lose your looks, gotta button your top button, can't show off your gabs. They are the boys' club. And we women of a certain age are not allowed in.
Bette is someone we can all learn from. She was one of the first people to really stand up and fight for what she believed to be right in Hollywood. So I feel that the show is important to tell her story.
Joan Crawford, the devil's alive and well. What brings you to my dressing room? Did someone die?
So working with Karen Carpenter has been amazing. She's a Drama Desk award-winning director, and she is so fantastic to work with. She just enriched it and made it pop and be absolutely incredible.
Baby Jane allowed me to unleash all my life's past and put it somewhere sacred. The big screen.
This show is for everyone. If you're a Bette Davis fan, you must come, because you'll see what you love about Bette. And if you don't know anything about Bette Davis, you'll learn about this wonderful woman in her fight in Hollywood. So it's for everybody.
I am larger than life, bigger than the big screen. I am an actress.
And there you go.
There it is.
It's like, again, Bette Davis smoked, she drank, and did a lot of things that were probably not considered very ladylike. But she got suspended more times than not by her studio because of fighting them head on. And you take all of that into account and really explain sort of the inner workings of that. Now, one of the things that we know in musical theater is that the musical Applause was based on All About Eve, and of course it brought new life back for another actress of her time, Lauren Bacall, and allowed her to be on stage again and on Broadway, which was wonderful. Again, I don't know whether or not you'll ever want to do anything relating to Lauren Bacall, but she was another young Jewish lady in that particular case who managed to come to and she had her own ideas about how to do her things as well, and managed to snare a very, very eligible actor named Humphrey Bogart in the process. I would like to go over, since you've done all this research, if maybe let some of the people know she was married a lot more than I thought, and I found out in the show. I remember in All About Eve she was married to the older actor
Gary Merrill.
Gary Merrill, who was quite interesting. That I never would put the two of them together, but I think at that point maybe she was ready to settle down a little bit more. But she was married to several people I never even knew about. And again, what was that all about? Was it that? And the first one, I don't want to give anything away, but apparently some of them were not necessarily marriages made in heaven, and there were problems with the marriage.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say anything more than that, but.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about being a Hollywood star, I always ask my audience, can you do it all? Can you be a Hollywood star, and then can you also have a home life? And, it depends on who you're married to and how much they understand the workings of being in the studio system, and she was gone 16, 18 hours a day. And that was part of her fight, saying that, we're being worked too hard. But you would come home after being on set all day, and then her first love, I would say, was Harmon O. Nelson. He was from her Yankee life, and he had come out from New England to Hollywood, and Hollywood was really a different pace. So they kind of started at the same level, and then she just took off. So there was ruffles in the marriage for sure, and definitely because she was a woman making and earning money, and he was not. He was earning some money, but not compared to a star. And even then, she wasn't making nearly as much as other actresses or actors, and she fought for that. But that definitely caused a lot of friction in their relationship. And it's too bad, because I do think he was probably the best fit for her as a Yankee. But she just, she went ahead in her career, and he kind of stayed where he was. That was her first marriage.
Yeah.
So.
And again, what about directors? Were there any directors that she particularly found to be very flattering? And were there some that she just couldn't stand and couldn't get along with at all?
Yeah, I mean, her favorite director was William Wyler. They had this very angsty relationship, because he would give her all this direction, and she would take it, but she'd doing it begrudgingly, only to see herself later how much better his acting direction was, because she was coming from theater where she was big, and he was trying to get her to be smaller. And there's a famous line where he said, "If you keep moving your neck, I'm going to put a chain around it." Needless to say, they had an affair together. So
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
A couple of Facebook people, again, their names don't pop up. Again, we remind you that you can do that, but you're going to do Katherine Hepburn according to that Facebook user.
Yeah, right.
And again, Bette Davis was in love by her own, I guess maybe admission rather than submission, but again, she liked to be in love. And again, I can't imagine what it would be like to be working for the studio system, but again, to work for the Warner studio was not an easy fit either, because they just churned out film after film after film. And again, I would say that if you said the word worked, you really should have inserted the word overworked instead.
Yes, that's exactly right. It was way too much. They were asking so much of each individual actor, to the point that Betty, I think it was 1939, which is like a record year of films. She did 5 films, feature films. And at one point she was 85 pounds, because she was so tired and overworked. And they would call it, I have exhaustion. But really they were all just being overworked on set, and they were not even able to really do their jobs as well as they could. She was labeled as a workhorse because she could be overworked. She came to theater. She was a tough lady, but still, no one should be working, 18 hours a day. And that's where you would see, the joke of these Judy Garlands, where they would be giving them uppers in their dressing rooms, and you would come into, work, and you'd see there be like a host of ways to stay awake. So the studio system was using their actors to churn out pictures at an unhealthy rate. And Betty was trying to bring that up back then.
And I get a kick out of the fact you mentioned 1939. Most people in Hollywood consider that the absolute golden age of all the golden years that there were, because Gone with the Wind came out, The Wizard of Oz came out, and she made 5 films during that year. That's outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. And even her mom was really worried about her. She's like, you gotta have a rest, but there was no time. They would get a film, they would finish a film, and they would start another film 2 days later. So they'd be over the weekend, struggling to get their lines, and then they'd be in a huge feature film right after one, one after the other. It was a lot. It was definitely a lot. And one of those films she did, I'm trying to remember, it was Elizabeth and Essex, 1939. She did, I think it was The Sisters, or was it Old Acquaintance? One of those. She was in Dark Victory. She was in, was it Juarez? I mean, it was a lot of films. We'd have to look on IMDb, but you see it it's a lot for 1 year.
Well, I remind everybody again, if they want their names to show up on the comments, just go there, facebook.com/StreamYard. You'll be able to see your name appear instead of having a comment that says
and I do have to give a shout out to one of
Yes.
our fans. The amazing Nina Kulari is here right now, and she's commenting on our. She's the amazing commenter.
Is
who
that the
has-
one that said must see?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
She has the show in
I
person.
can't tell who that is.
Nina's amazing. She's
Eh,
my best fan.
Somebody wanted to know: do you do Q&As after the performance, or do you just meet them and they'll answer?
Yes, I do Q&As after every show because it's such an interesting journey of my own
Oh,
journey
okay.
of
So a formal Q&A from the stage, right?
from
Oh,
the
okay.
stage.
So
Yeah.
you don't empty
Gotta
out the
leave,
auditorium.
go.
Okay,
Otherwise, stay with me. Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I do know because apparently you do have many fans. So, all right, very cool. Again, you are going to have a feature written up in the Crescent City Jewish News this week. It is a religious holiday today and tomorrow, so I can't even think about posting it till after Simchas Torah is over. But we will have that up for people to read a little bit more about it. And again, I want everybody to know that this is a show that hopefully is the first of maybe a couple of times or 3 times that we'll get to see you. But we really need to have people support you this time out because there's only 2 out of the 3 shows that you were scheduled for originally. We want to make sure that those shows sell out. So again, you got to go to the World War II Museum. And again, I believe I had the right spot there for you to go. And if you go to that spot, you will see where you can get tickets. And again, what fun for the family, to find out a little bit more about an actor of great worth and again, her life story, which again, we have a little bit of a local connection, and I know that people will recall this, but I wanted to mention the fact that we have a lot of how shall I put it, fans who know about the Homus House, and the Homus House used to be called, I think the Sugar something plantation. It was like it was basically a sugar plantation. They made lots and lots of sugar that was then later on, probably turned into all kinds of products, maybe even molasses, because that's the way they made things. But the Homus House is refurbished and has really been turned into a beautiful mansion now. But back in 1964 or so, it was used as a site for the filming of the movie Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. And so they actually have at the Homus House, in the main mansion, they have a room there that's dedicated to Bette Davis. And there are pictures on the wall of Bette Davis filming. Was Olivia de Havilland in that one as well?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think she was. And it's odd to think that Olivia de Havilland just died like at 104 and she was still alive, all these many years and doing quite well. But again, Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte was sort of, I'm not even, would we call it a gothic thriller?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got some sort of like darkness to it.
Yeah. So, and again, I know the other one that people think about, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, right? That was the other one she did with Joan Crawford.
Yes.
So again, those were the later years, of her career, but you're not concentrating much on those. And I want people to know that if they ever go to the Homus House, that room is still intact and that it is almost a shrine to Bette Davis. Wow. And I think that maybe you might actually be visiting over there, huh? We're not sure yet, but we're going to
working on it.
Get that worked out. Let me see. Yes. Okay. We are not doing an imitation, just like the guy who does Johnny Cash's. He's not doing an imitation. They're not, all the people who are at the World War II Museum. And guess what? Here she is, ladies and gentlemen, the one we mentioned out of the block already, Heather Massey, who did perform as Hedy Lamarr and it does a wonderful job. What is it? Hedy Lamarr, I'm trying to remember the inventions. the Loves and Inventions. I'm trying to remember what it was, but anyway, Heather, thank you for coming tonight. We do appreciate that. We know that you and Jessica have each other's backs, and you two are doing these kinds of one woman shows, and doing this, especially during a time when the world was not working with theater very well. And so to see you out there is really gratifying to me as well. And I hope that she gets to come back as well. We know that it's really important that people support these kinds of shows, because the World War II Museum is trying to diversify more into what they're doing. And it's very important that these kinds of outside shows who come in are able to be seen by as many people, and that they do, this kind of diverse outreach. They have done plays in the past. They have done some occasional musicals and things of that sort. Mostly they had started out doing just the Victory Bells. And of course, that's nothing wrong with a Victory Bells show. They're wonderful. And the Victory Bells, every one of them is talented to boot. But, these are opportunities for people to see more than just, a patriotic number or two that would be done in keeping with the mission statement of the World War II Museum. They bring a lot to it. So let me see. There it is. This is it. I didn't get it right, so here I'm going to do it right. Thank you so much, Heather. Keep me on my toes. The Life and Inventions of Hedy Lamarr. And again, somebody asked, I guess, if you're doing any plays. I think you might be working on one coming up, won't you?
Yeah.
Is that something that you want to mention now, or?
Yeah, I can. I mean, it's going to hit the news tomorrow. So someone saw my Bette Davis show that was filmed last year, a playwright, and she thought I was wonderful. And so she emailed me a script. And normally I read scripts. I'm like, And this time I read the script. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. This is so good. And turns out this playwright, Katherine Hepburn, is from New Orleans. Ironically, she lives in New York, but she saw the Bette Davis show. She sent me a script. I loved it. It has nothing to do with Bette Davis. It's just this funny, really well written play about these women and their sisters. And it's so funny and so well adapted to today's world. So anyways, what happened is I reached out. I said, your play is wonderful. Could I produce a reading for you on Zoom or something? So I really want to work on it. And she did one better. She was absolutely. And then she was able to get herself a 3-week run at Theater for the New City. So we'll actually have a full in-person run in New York in spring. I believe it's spring of 2023. We're going to have our first reading. That'll be November 3rd. That'll be right here in New York. And that'll be just, to have it kind of like heard out loud. And then it'll get a full-on production. And it's called How to Break Up a Wedding.
So my question is this reading on November the 3rd, if somebody wanted to see it, is it something that everybody can see, or is it by invitation only, or how's that going to work?
Anyone can come. I think it's, if someone's interested, it's always best to go to my website, find my email, and just email me and make sure, because they do have some COVID restrictions. You just have to make sure that you show your COVID vaccination, and they're a little careful on that. But really anyone can come. It's going
to be in person rather than on a streaming.
Yeah,
so it's an in person.
I'll find out if they're doing a screening version of it. But I think they're really interested in
getting feedback from an audience. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Well, again, we all learned with streaming during COVID that even though there's some other hoops you have to jump through for either equity or SAG-AFTRA, that the benefits of being able to be seen by hundreds or thousands of people, as opposed to just having a run where you could maybe get 200 people a night, it has its benefits. Yeah. And again, that was required because nobody could actually meet in person. And so, because of the COVID restrictions, several projects actually had new life, or perhaps had more life than they expected to.
Yeah, so, I'm happy that theater is finally getting kind of this outward experience, because it's normally you go to theater, you see it that one night, you see it that one audience, and then it was great, but that's it. So I feel as though there's a really good crossover with a lot of the theaters in New York right now. They're trying to do both, like you say, like you do a show, but you can stream it as well, which is kind of amazing.
It's been a problem, like for instance, everybody says, oh, Hamilton now is on Disney Plus. Yes. They paid $75 million for the rights to get Hamilton on Disney Plus. And I think Lin-Manuel got about 40 some odd million out of that. I don't know how much Jeffrey Sellers got, but they all made significant treasure troves of money as a result.
Yeah.
And all of the actors who originated the roles. So it's very important. But that is a fluke. You don't see that often, I mean, it's very rare when something will have that kind of steam on its own and generate that kind of interest. But those shows that do go on for streaming have to go under usually a SAG-AFTRA contract as opposed to equity. Usually it's one or the other. And usually if it's a film, it's SAG-AFTRA. You got to figure it the way we were dealing with it. If it's shot out of sequence, like a film, okay, then it usually is SAG-AFTRA. If it's shot as a play or musical as it's being seen in front of a live audience, then that would probably fall under Actors Equity, although sometimes they have a partnership with both of them. Now, this is something. Bette Davis was Hedy Lamarr's daughter, Denise's godmother. There you go. Now, only the two of you would know these two things.
I know. They were so connected. Those women were so amazing. And I'm so happy that Heather is continuing her show because it's an amazing show. And like these shows, not only are they important to be seen by audiences, these women were really interesting. They were more interesting than all the Googles of the world. Like their lives were so interesting.
Yes.
And luckily Erica we're really, I think Heather and I both agree, very lucky that we've met someone like Erica, who was willing to say, hey, World War II Museum is been this one way, but we want to try to bring in solo shows. Like she really had a mindset to go in there and bring in solo shows. And I know she's going to bring in my friend Randy Otto's show. He does an amazing Churchill. So not only will we all be coming back, but we're trying to, bring in more of our own really. Even though we haven't been on Broadway or off Broadway, these shows are so good. They're the niche shows that have been written from heart, blood, sweat, and tears, and self-produced. All of us are self-producers, and we're just hustlers, and we do try to help each other. And I love that, Heather and I have phone calls. We try to figure it out together, and that's kind of what we're doing, is just trying to bring really good theater, a smaller size theater, to venues that are quality venues. So.
Now, you did take this show to the Edinburgh Fringe Fest, did you not?
I did.
And it sold out many times over, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was the first time I'd really taken it out of New York. And I was not sure if anyone was really going to come. And I remember when I was in Scotland, in Edinburgh, my first show, I said to the young lady who was helping me, I said, no one's going to come. No one knows me. It's 12:45 in the afternoon. And she said, well, they're waiting for something. I was like, oh my gosh. So 10 minutes go by. I'm like, what are they waiting for? She said, they're getting more chairs from downstairs. They've already filled up your 45 seats. They're putting another 10. And that show did so well. Every show, it would sell out. And we'd have people sitting on the ground. At one point, the fire marshal came in and said, you can't have people sitting on the ground. Like, yes, I can. Why not theater? And it was amazing because the Bette Davis name was so wanted. And if you do research on Bette, she says the same thing. She says she was so loved in Scotland. She had gone there for something. And she said the crowds in Scotland just adored her. So it's interesting to see that here all these years later, I'm doing my show and still people were just, and it was to the point where like I really had a successful run in Edinburgh, which also oftentimes people have 4 to 6 people in their audience. And I was getting, at one point I had 80 to 100. My second year and third year, I had a theater that was twice as big, and we were selling out in advance because people had heard about it. And then ultimately, my one of the shows I did, I had an audience member say, "I love this show. I want to call it the St. James Theatre in London," and he did. And because he knew the man who ran the St. James Theatre in London, they took my show after the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I had a 2-week special engagement in London.
Wow. You must have been on top of the world there, huh?
I was like, what's going on?
So how many seats was the St. James that you mentioned? How many?
Yeah, that was like 200. It was small. I mean, those were the days where I was still doing 100 and 200 seat theaters. I mean, now I'm doing 5, 6, 7, 800 seats. I had my first 1,000 seat theater last month, which was crazy to me. But that's how much the show, even though it's a small show, it can reach bigger audiences. So it's gonna be great because BB's Stage Door Canteen is very it's very intimate, and that's lovely.
I'm not quite sure. Again, in most of the venues, the name of the show is Bette Davis is Not for Sissies, but that's all right. Here it's going to be known as Larger Than Life, but I'm not quite sure what this refers to. Do you know what she's? Please mention the beginning. What does that
Oh,
mean?
I guess because I think my beginning, that's got to be Nina. Nina knows everything.
Yeah.
She's my best fan.
She sounds like it, yes.
She's been to my show many times. She's wonderful. A New Yorker. Yeah, I mean, I think that the beginning was that the show really had its legs in Scotland. And it was, the first time I had tested, does this show work out of New York? And it clearly did. And that was the first time I said, well, I think I can't give up. And I also, at that point, I had sent my script right before I went to Scotland. I sent the script to the Bette Davis estate because I wasn't sure legally if I could use her name.
Right.
And I got a phone call on a Sunday, and it was a woman. She said, my name is Katherine Hepburn. I was Bette Davis's assistant for the last 10 years of her life. I read your play. It's amazing. Can I meet with you if you need help? And I was like, where do you live? So I did. I flew out to Los Angeles where she lived, and she and I sat down together. We talked about my play. She told me about Betty. She told me about the life that she had with Bette Davis as her assistant. It was incredible. And at the end of the meeting, she gave me a little gift, and it was a white box with a gold bow. And inside was a pair of Bette Davis's scarf, handkerchief, earrings, and gloves to wear in the show. And she said, Betty would have wanted you to have these to wear. So that was kind of a stamp of like, don't give up, kid. Keep on going. And that was 2013. That was when I got the gift. And then
That's 9 years now. So you've been with Betty for a lot longer than some of her husbands.
Yeah, actually, it's crazy. I've not given up on her.
I wanted to ask, this obviously might stand out as the biggest gift you got, but were there any opportunities that you had in doing any of these shows where people came up to you and gave you a little bit of a snippet from their life where they had interacted with Bette Davis or something? Could you tell me a little bit about one of those or more?
Same story. It's always like Betty lived in my building. She came to dinner once, and then she was kind of snarky and said, we never have to do it again. I'd heard that at least 3 times from very different people about how Betty, as she got a little older, she would, if you asked her to dinner, she would go. And then if she didn't like you, she was very candid, said, okay, now that we've done that once, we don't ever have to do it again.
I always like to know whether or not she had invented some of the lines that are attributed to her, like one of my favorites that I've quoted on several occasions. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. I mean, do we know if she improvised any of those, or do you know of any? Or
I mean, that was Joe Makowitz's amazing script of All About Eve. Like that script was meant for Claudette Colbert. She had the role. She was in the role, and
really?
She had hurt her back. And so much so that she could not, if you think about this, it's kind of amazing. She couldn't do the film. And so Makowitz said, I think I want to offer Bette Davis this role. And Betty was kind of washed up at that point. I mean, she's 39, maybe going on 40. She was really not working. So David Selznick had to call her. And he was not a big fan of Betty, but he had to give her this gift. And I know for him it was hard, but she ultimately came back because of that. And the famous dress where it's off her shoulders, the reason it's off her shoulders is because Claudette was smaller. And so for Betty, she had to widen it up. And so it famously became the off the shoulder dress.
And I remember seeing a screen test she did trying to get the role of Vivian Leigh for David O. Selznick. Everybody. But I remember for sure, I said, I can't ever imagine Scarlett O'Hara being Bette Davis. No. Just not.
Yeah, well, Jezebel, they were similar. So
but they were different, and somebody. And look, this is not all about me, but I will acknowledge this person. They like my tie. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
nice.
Yeah, the Beatles,
Nice.
The early Beatles. I actually have one that's the late Beatles too, where they have beards and stuff. So I have the scruffy Beatles tie as well. So there you go. Well, we believe it or not, we've come to the end of our night. Believe it or not, as I said, it goes by quick, and I hope that I've done justice to the show once again. For those of you who were just tuning in and didn't catch any of what we were doing, Jessica Sherr was our guest tonight. Bette Davis, Larger Than Life, is what we are hoping that you will come to and see. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that we could talk about in terms of Bette Davis's impact. I think we covered most of it. But again, those of you who are looking to perhaps go to see the show and want to get some more information on how to get tickets, etc., I want to try to go ahead and give you that link again. www.nationalww2museum.org/program/Bette-Davis-larger-life. And that way you will get tickets. Jessica, stick around for just a little bit while I say goodbye to everybody else. And again, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I hope that everybody enjoys your company with me tonight, and that we will maybe have some lovely pictures from you over at the Homeless House as you visit the Bette Davis room one of these days.
Yes.
And again, stick around. We're going to say goodnight to everybody. Again, my name is Alan Smason. Again, this is NOLA Theater Talk, and we've been here for an hour to talk about what's going on here locally, and also to let everybody know that Jessica is going to be here. If you do need any more information about what's going to be happening, we hope to have members of the NOLA project. They're doing the Seagull or How to Eat It over at the Sculpture Garden at City Park. So they should be on our show next Monday on the 24th of October. We anticipate the day after Jessica finishes up her show that you'll be able to maybe see perhaps the director, AJ Allegra, perhaps Gab Reisman, who's the writer, perhaps some of the actors. I don't know anything yet as to who's going to more or less assent to be with us, but we know we are going to talk about the Seagull, and that's another show that you might want to check out right now. So on behalf of everybody here tonight, Jessica, myself, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you at the theater.